Hello, Professor Miller and classmates. For my TED Talk presentation, I chose to critically analyze the TED Talk presented by Shawn titled The Happy Secret to Better Work. I chose this TED Talk because I felt the speaker, Shawn made a very important point about how our perspective and take on certain situations can influence the satisfaction of that outcome. And I also believe that is an important message that many people need to hear in order to be more productive and satisfied within their lives, especially with the negativity that is going on within the world today. So about this TED Talk, who is the speaker and what is their main point? The speaker is Shawn. He talks about how our society bases our work on settling for merely average, and he suggests that if we continue to do this, we will remain merely average and have no success or improvement with our work that we perform. And in this presentation, he explains how the formula to success is backwards. In other words, how happiness is not defined by success, but how happiness is a key to success. So in order to be successful, we have to be happy to have that encouragement to be able to perform our work. But if we base our happiness on success, then we may never reach happiness if we don't complete the tasks that we want to complete to become successful. He is presenting to the general public, but it's specifically centered on people working within a business or company. Who is he, and is he qualified to present this topic? He is from Waco, Texas. I believe that's how you say that. He is a certified psychologist. He spent 12 years at Harvard. He traveled to 50 countries to research and study positive psychology. He is the author of the book, The Happiness Advantage, and he is the founder and CEO of GoodThink.Inc., which is a business corporation that fuels positivity and optimism at organizations to drive business results. Their findings found by their research are correlated with real-life scenarios and are evidence-based, which do make them credible. This corporation is also comprised of professional certified speakers, researchers, and trainers. How does Shawn support his claim? He uses persuasive appeals like pathos, ethos, and logos. Within these, he uses personal examples, facts found through his research, and logical examples. Within his factual evidence provided, it involves the use of quantitative data and explanation summarizing his data, and he connects all of his information to his claim in order to support it. One example that he has is that when he's trying to show if people work happier, it shows that every business outcome improves. People are within those businesses are 31% more productive, have 37% better sales, and a more specific example is with doctors that they will perform 19% more faster and accurate. He also adds that if we become more happier, a natural forming substance, dopamine, floods into your brain, which turns on learning centers in our brain, which this allows us to adapt to different situations in different ways, more typically in a positive way, since we are more happier. So the persuasive appeals that he used, first starting with pathos, which is the emotional appeal. Shawn incorporates many personal stories in order to connect to the audience's emotions, which he's speaking to. He is aiming for his message to have a relatable and deeper effect on his audience. One example that he had was a childhood story, which he started his presentation with, and he talked about how he was playing with his sister on the bunk bed and she fell and he didn't want her to cry, so she said that she landed like a unicorn, which unicorns make his sister happy. So the fact that she was happy made her react in a more positive way rather than to cry, which this example supported his message that it showed how fast and in what way our brain reacts to certain situations. Another example that he incorporated, a personal one, was that how he experienced Harvard. It ties more into the logical appeal, which I talk about later, so I'll talk about that later in the presentation. And the third emotional appeal would be humor, which he does this a lot, and you could hear the audience laughing throughout the presentation. And the way he explains things through his word choice and blunt humor makes his presentation more humorous and grabs the audience's attention. Like, he refers to his sister as Amy the Unicorn. He also refers to medical school syndrome, which is when you go to medical school, you often get all the diseases that you're studying because it's so stressful and so because of the workload and everything. And he refers to his sister's husband as Bobo, and that's just a natural thing to laugh at because it's an odd name. And then he also refers to as liars as weirdos, which is not a professional word to use within a presentation, which gets the audience laughing because it's so blunt. Another persuasive appeal that he uses is ethos, which is the speaker's credibility and character. The speaker's credibility and character expressed within the presentation helps him build trust within his audience. So the fact that he is a psychologist it helps the audience be like, oh, okay, he's a psychologist. He knows what he's talking about when it comes to emotions and knowing how people feel and everything. And he's also the CEO of an organization that actually studies positive psychology and emotions. So by the fact that that is concentrated on spreading positivity at organizations to drive business results through speakers and trainers that specialize in happiness, shows that he is certified to speak in that the audience should believe. It obligates the audience to believe him since he is so experienced in this field. He also states more than once in his speech when speaking on positive psychology that it is the reason that he wakes up every morning, and by saying this, it shows his dedication to his work, which attracts the audience to what he's trying to say by his dedication, that they want to be dedicated to what he's listening to. He also makes logical and rational arguments within his speech, which support the claim that he's making. He uses this graph that shows an outlier on the graph rather than on the best line of best fit. And he says that we often teach people in economic statistics and business and psychology to eliminate the outliers in order to get the line of best fit. But he makes a point that our society is measuring the merely average when we should actually be studying that outlier in order to become above merely average, in order to become successful within our work. He also goes about negative news and how we talk about it so much negativity in the news that we should transfer that news to more positive subjects and everything in order to have a more positive outcome within the environment in the society. As I stated previously in the presentation, he also uses his experience at Harvard to create a logical argument, and by saying that the logical expectation for Harvard students is that they are happy because they made it into such a good college, but after time, the overload of stress, competition, and workload hassles and complaints make them unhappy, which just shows that success does not mean that you're going to be happy. You have to be happy in order to become successful, because those college students, they were successful getting into the school, but after a certain amount of time, that happiness faded because they had other goals to reach. And lastly, what is a larger discussion of the subject matter, or what is the bigger picture? it is that success does not ensure happiness. You have to be happy in order to become successful, or you're never going to reach the happiness at the end of the tunnel if you just base success on happiness. Also, if we change how we look at things, we can influence our outcome situations in positive ways. So therefore, if we think positive, we're going to have a more positive outcome and a more successful process in achieving our goals. But if we think negative, then it's going to be harder to accomplish those goals and to have an actual positive outcome.